Welcome back to Fullerton College Print 145 Variable Data Printing. This is your instructor, Ben Hewitt. Today we're looking at our sample business card typesetting project where we use variable data instruments like XMPie and InDesign to do typesetting for us, to be able to create a vast swath of business cards in one fell swoop. So let's take a look at how to do this. It's actually pretty straightforward. I built myself a nice little placeholder, and it's more than a placeholder, says the name. Built myself a nice little template for a practice business card. You guys can build your own, or if you really want to use mine, you can use mine. But you know, you can have more fun with this than just that. Anyways, to practice doing this, we're going to load up some stuff here. So I've built, let me switch out of my preview mode so you can see I have separate text frames for my first and last name and my company, which is kind of like a title, really, is what I would have done if it was a proper spreadsheet with people's titles. Down below, we have phone 1 and phone 2, which we can play around a little bit more, and we'll do a multiple content objects to build an email out of things to show you how you can kind of string things together. Next time, we'll get a little bit closer to the tricky stuff that I like to think of as setting the clock on a VCR level of complexity. You guys are going to be really good at this. First, let's do this one. So the first thing we do, if it's not there yet, is you do Window XMPie You Create Print, which brings up our XMPie palette that we're used to working in. We link to our data source. And I'm going to use our sample combined list that we've been using. Say OK, and that gives us this. First thing we're going to do is the first name. We'll select the word first that I've already put in to let me know that I'm using this as a content object, and I'll double click first name to replace. Last name, but doesn't get old, does it? Company name, we're going to use this here. And then phone 1, phone 2, and the email is going to be interesting. We will do last name at companyname.com, because you can mix elements in a text box that are both dynamic and static. So if I look, get out of that box. If we look at it here, we have this, James Butt, Benton John B. Jr. with the 2 phone numbers. We're going to want to do a little bit something else to that real quick too, because that's not really. Oops. I am going to go here and make this light. There we go. So we have the office and the fax. I'm actually going to right align both of these. It's kind of awkward because an O is wider than an F, so trying to make it look like it lines up. Maybe I should center it actually. There you go. Best of both worlds, or the least of the lesser of 2 evils. There we go. So this is more or less what we need to do to build this. Now there will be some problems as we go along, potentially. And maybe there aren't, but don't forget, wow, I did too good of a job for this video. Sorry, guys. Don't forget that you're going to want to, especially down here, we're going to do our dynamic story properties, and we're going to dynamic story length handling, make sure that if it overflows, we keep it smaller. 75% should do. So this is actually a fairly straightforward, I don't like the placement of that, a very straightforward little project. Hopefully this is not too much trouble for you guys, and hopefully it teaches you the basics of putting things together. You can see that you have multiple objects in the same box. Each one of these has its own style, and this is just applied up top. I made sure that I had these ones set as heavy. Heck, I could go black and make it a little bit heavier. Ooh, there we go. Black is as heavy as you can normally go typically. Black referring to the fact that you're seeing all ink and very little paper, kind of like black letter. So you make that work there. If you wanted to, you could all caps or small caps any part of this, except it's not nice to people to make them try to read an email address in all caps or small caps. We could, in fact, we might want to go through and make sure that the email is all lowercase. So we can go to type, change case, lowercase, but that's not, ooh, there's a good one. Actually, someone got 2 copies of it there. Don't know how that happened. Oh, I do know how that happened. By making it lowercase, I caused a problem with the coding. So by trying to put extra things, you can see the P here as well. It looks like the name, let's just undo a bunch here until we get there. There we go. Trying to convert it. If you guys could see what happened here, that was an interesting little lesson I didn't mean to give you, but congratulations on bonus learning. Hooray! Confetti from the ceiling. If I've had time to come to your houses and install confetti launchers. Hopefully I did. If not, just bear with me and pretend there's confetti falling from your ceiling because it warms my heart. Okay, so when I told this to override with the type change case, that caused the first letter, which it did of each word, to turn from an uppercase to a lowercase. That forced it out of dynamicness and into static characters. That's just why you had the CPII showing up in the next version of this. I'll do one more undone. If you wanted to do this, let me show you a more complicated piece of code that'll work better than that. So we're going to do our first time we edit a rule. Let's take a look at this. We're going to go down. There's more than one way to get this in this menu. So let's do a palette menu, content object, create new content object, or you can right click new content object. Guess which one I like better? Email is what it's going to be called. And it's going to be text with style. Although we may not apply, no, we're not going to use the style. We'll just do text. That's fine. So value equals. But before we do last name, you can choose to make it lowercase. If you scroll through these options, when you, sorry, I shouldn't even get you started in all this, orient you to this page here, new content object. Up at the top is the name of the content object we're making. Since I'm making an email address generator, I'm going to call it email. Because if I call it bob.com, that's really funny, and I'm going to make myself chuckle every time I see it, the chuckling will die down. And then a year when I have to come back to do this job and I don't remember what that means, I won't be laughing. So email. It's a text type. You can do text, text with style. Text file means it's importing text from outside, like an extra Word doc or something. Graphic, we'll get to that later, and that is fun. Visibility, style, link, table. A lot of these are fairly straightforward. Campaign dial, we don't need to mess with. That has to do with online content and making it available for other XMPie users. Rule and audience. Audience is a separate thing that we'll look at another time. The rules are using. For today, I mean, you have a choice between value and if. Today we're using only value. There's going to be no ifs. If is its own lecture. If is when you start making conditional formatting. God, do I love that stuff. But we're going to do value equals. And this time we're saying, yes, you have a choice of all these different things. If you see a letter like a T or a number thing next to something in brackets, that tells you that's a content object, that it's a text style here. So these are all our objects. Any one of these is going to pull straight from the spreadsheet and drop it in. Up above, you can choose a string or a number. We'll talk about those in a little bit too. You can choose your cases, title case, lowercase, uppercase. You can choose to use the length of something, which is kind of fun to mess with. Going down below, you can add things like end of paragraphs, line breaks, and tabs. And there's a lot more stuff as you scroll down. And we're going to look at a lot of this, but maybe not all of it this semester, because some of it I honestly don't use a whole lot of hex to Unicode conversion myself in my projects. But if anyone is using data that's pulled from a website, you may need to translate between Unicode and hex. I just haven't had a use for that in my life yet. So lowercase, and we're going to want to say, oh, sorry, that's done incorrectly. Last name plus lowercase. Hey, that didn't work right. Value equals lowercase. Lowercase, there we go, last name. That's how it should work. It should have parentheses. It's kind of like a math equation. The value is x equals lowercase of last name plus lowercase of company name. Except that's not quite going to do it all the way. Let's see what that gives us so far. So if we say okay, that's going to work. Whoops. Hey, look, I messed up my thing. Email variable, because there is an email on this. We're just building our own. There we go. So now, you know what? I'm going to undo this just for a moment. Let's not have the dynamic storing properties. Let's disable that for the moment. It'll make my life easier because it's going to give me the warning every time. So now, if I use our email variable we just built and put that in, it does but Benton, comma, Benton B Jr. and it doesn't quite work the way we'd hoped. So let's take a look at how we can make that work. To edit an existing rule, we go over here and we right click and we say edit rule. We're going to change the rules.
I'm altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
Sorry, had to do that. If we were altering it, pray I need not alter it further. Okay, so we're changing the rule. We're going to make some edits. So we need to add some more stuff in here. And we're going to learn about something called a string right now, which sounds all complicated in programming and is really, really a more difficult way of saying, hey, put these letters that I'm telling you right here. So we're going to say, instead, let's add a string. And the string is going to be at. And then we're going to go to plus after that on the next thing. And we're going to add the lowercase company name. And then we're going to add one more string. And that last string, you guessed it, is .com. Okay. Now we have first or last name at businessname.com. I know that some of the formatting this is a little awkward because some of the business names have a lot of punctuation in them. I'm sorry, this is an exercise and I didn't build you a whole new spreadsheet for it this time. Anyways, as we do, you'll take a photo, some screenshots of a few of these. Let's do the thing here to prove that we've done this with a few different data source points, and you'll give me those screenshots put together in a PDF that you make in InDesign. Thank you so much for following along. I hope this was instructive and not too bumbling. Looking forward to see you guys on Tuesday. Bye for now.